kid. What do you mean? Oh, good morning. This is delightful. I've been out of the business for a while because of taking an early retirement in actually 12 years ago. I taught at IU, just a little background for some of you who don't know me. I taught psychiatric nursing at IU for 30 years. I started when I was 12 years old. Took an early retirement because my husband he'd been an architect for 35 years, and he says, I'm going, and I said, I'm going too. And so we decided, I was at a point in my career that it was either start over again and, do another big research project or whatever, but I thought, I think I'd just kind of go out on top. And one of the highlights of my whole career while I was teaching was my participation in ISNA, and I'd gone from district to the Psychiatric Nursing Council at that time, and I'd been a board member forever, and then I was part of a lot of this activity, kind of as a board member, as a participant on the State House steps, and I said, this is the fun stuff. This is where it really is. And so I decided that I would just hang in there, and when it kind of seemed to be my turn, I said, okay, put my hand up, and I said, I'll run. And then I realized, I thought maybe there once I was going to run. I even wrote an article one time and said, as we were going through the process, which I'll describe here in a minute, just some highlights of things that happened during those 4 years. And by the way, I loved it so much, I ran twice, and I served 2 terms, kind of like Brenda. I think we kind of just got into it. But anyway, I was going to bring it today because the staff gave me this little miniature copy of a Volkswagen bus, because things got so hairy one time when we were into some of our deliberations that I wrote an article and said that, there's a news flash. The president has joined a group of hippies in a Volkswagen bus and has headed for the West Coast. But anyway, I love my humor, and life is good. People say, what are you doing? I say, I'm still living the life. So anyway, still water skiing, by the way. Not a little bragging there. So I took over. Well, basketball, water skiing. In 1998, is that when did I serve? Yeah, 98. We got out of the House of Delegates with some pretty strong resolutions. They were both at national level, local level. I mean, you could touch on almost every single aspect of the Code of Ethics that we came out with. We were looking at, again, back to the whole thing about mandatory CEU for licensure. We were looking at the abuse across the lifespan and some issues that were not being addressed with that at the state and national level. The whole deal about managed care and how that was affecting nursing, and the whole business of another shortage. And with managed care also came issues about delegation again. So we really had our plate full. And I can remember the first board meeting, it was like, okay, where do we start? So we did. I had Naomi Patchen. I had a wonderful board at that time, and we began to prioritize. And Phyllis Sanford, who's not here, unfortunately, I don't think she is, was my first vice president. And she agreed to chair the committee to restructure ISNA. And if you think change isn't hard, it was, to go from 17 districts that had been established for years. Some of them had 5 members. Some of them had, it was like the Electoral College. It was sort of a situation that the House of Delegates decided that we needed to take a look at. And so, not to go into all the minutia, but it was, and Sandy will probably pick up on this because, bless her heart, she was assigned the task as the next president of implementing the regional structure. So we dug in, and in October of '98, and I remember Naomi was a little bit kicking and screaming, but ISNA went on the internet. And there you have it. Now, we're still there, and then it wasn't so bad. Once she got into it, she really kind of liked it, but it was like, I can understand. I wasn't the best in the beginning either. Now I live on my computer, but anyway. And we were still fighting the good fight at the local level with advanced practice nursing, and not only the local, but actually the national level with Medicare and reimbursement, and just, it was like it would come at us from all sides, but we just dug in and dealt with it, and we had good people that had interest in various aspects of things that were going on. And for example, I pulled out this note. It said, okay, we thought we had everything pretty well passed from Louise's, and we got advanced practice nursing, and then we worked on prescriptive authority. We thought that had that all put together. Well, at the very last minute, we got word at the State House, and the legislator, you might be able to help me with this, remains nameless. We got the word that they had planned to attach an amendment to a bill to prevent nurses from prescribing controlled substances. So it was like, here it comes again. You know, you've got to be constantly vigilant, because they're chipping away, and we were still fighting that battle, even though it was at a different level. But we have always been so on top of the legislative process, and I think a lot of that goes back to what you heard from our first president here, or not the first president, the first president present. And by this time, we had made the decision to hire our own lobbyists, so it wasn't just up to the president, the members, and Naomi Patchen. But we had hired lobbyists down at the State House who were there all the time, who could stay on top of this. Well, immediately, their quick action combined with another avalanche from members that were watching for this, that kind of went away, and he decided not to go forward with that. So those are some of the things that we were dealing with. A&A was in kind of a turmoil at that time. In '98, California pulled out of A&A and decided that they were going to become a nursing union. And so you that go back and have been delegates for A&A all these years remember all the strife that went on with the non-labor states and the labor states, and what was A&A's role, what was our role. And I think ISNA handled it with such utmost class, and we said, you know, nurses have the right to organize, but our organization is not set up to do that, so we had a contract with Ohio. So if nurses needed to go that route, they could, and I think did on a few occasions. And so it was very civilized, very accommodating, looking out for nursing way of handling things. And all the time that A&A was over here, and the labor states in New York and California were trying to rip apart A&A, and it was a very uncomfortable time, even to go to some of those meetings. So, but we were handling it, and we were plugging along, reorganizing our own organization to be sure that we were trying the best we could to present nursing in the most positive light and to meet the needs of our members and prospective members. That one thing that I kept hammering is that it's not members and non-members, it's members and prospective members. You know, how can we introduce people? And I think this is a part of what we're doing today. You're seeing how we encouraged each other, we built on each other's shoulders, and we kept it going. And I hope with what's coming down the road that we can still do that, because I think we may have some interesting challenges ahead. I think we don't really know where this is going to go. And by the way, the other thing I've done since I've retired, and I'm so good now on my computer and all my reading time, I've kind of become a political junkie. So right now, I'm reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And so I've read, I read everything from James Patterson to Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. So keeps you a well-rounded person. So, let's see. I think just to wrap it up, the other big thing that happened. In 2000, ISNA hosted the A&A convention at our beautiful new downtown. I mean, how could I not remember that?
The best convention ever.
The best convention ever. And in meetings leading up to this at A&A, there were some people going, Indianapolis, why in the world are you going to go to Indianapolis when you could go to San Diego, or you could go to, whatever. And we just kept plugging away, and it was kind of like trying to get the Olympics, but we did it. And they came, and people came up to me 2 and 3 years later and said, oh my gosh, that was the best convention that we have ever attended. You have such a beautiful, vibrant city.
And everything's in one area.
and everything is in one area, and there's so much to do and see, and that was a real highlight. And shop. And you didn't even have to go outside. But we did have good weather because it was June. But the other great bonus that came out of that convention, and I just could not believe when I walked in today that here he sat. Naomi had announced that she would stay on through the ANA convention, but she was going to retire, and she wanted to retire, and that was another thing that the board needed to do, was to replace our executive director. Well, here shows up Ernie as a delegate from Florida. He had since moved to Florida. And I thought, and of course Ernie had been with us as assistant executive, and he had been, and then left us and went to Florida. Well, you talk about the romance. And to make a long story endless, we got him back and kept you for how many years? It was wonderful. So, yeah. So that was a real bonus out of that convention. So anyway, those are some of the highlights, and I think that all in all, we've always kept our purpose. Ultimately, it's the public and protection of patients and of the vulnerable, and making sure there's access to care. I mean, it's like, we're like a one-man band sometimes, trying to keep it all. And that's why we need leadership from, coming on. We need new, fresh leadership to help us keep this train on the track. And like I said, lots of new challenges. There's a lot of unknowns that we kind of have to keep an eye out on and see how that's going to affect us. So I just challenge all of you that are still in practice, and that those of you that are coming into practice, to not just keep your head down and just think about today and tomorrow and what's going on in your unit, but to think about the big picture. Because everybody here that's come to talk to you today, that's what we all tried to do, and I think it certainly made me a better person, and at the time it made me a better nurse. So I just encourage you to think about that. So the other thing is that I want to just remind you, and I said members and prospective members, ISNA, as you can see across the board, advocates not only for patients, but for all nurses, whether they're members or they're prospective members. But nursing as a profession benefits from our organization. And sometimes it's heavy lifting, and sometimes it's fun, but I think it's a good balance, and it's worth your time and investment. So I thank all of those that came before me, and I thank all of those that will come after me. Life is good.